Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. We'll get to the Women's World Cup update and some NFL news a little later in the show, but we'll kick off today's episode with some baseball news. Mike, the Royals are actually on a 4-game win streak this season, have not lost in 6 days. Second best, I think, of the season from their 8-day not
In terms
losing
of yeah,
because of the All-Star break and rain and the weird rain out then afterwards. But what do you find most interesting from the Royals of recent times? The big hitting performances from Bobby Witt Jr. Or just winning more than one game in any kind of span, or is it, or are you more looking at still the big picture and not seeing much? What are you reveling in, more of the negative things still, or are you just trying to grasp to this brief moment of success?
I think I'm grasping onto the brief moment of success. This is yesterday was the Royals' first 3-game winning streak of the season, and today is now, since they beat the Mets in dramatic fashion with
Technicality
an
fashion.
illegal disengagement, which I haven't actually seen. I don't really know what happened, but the Royals had the bases loaded. They blew the game several times. They should have won, and then they lost, and then they should, so it was a bizarre game, and it involved the bequeathed runners scoring for both teams, and it
Yeah.
was so 7-6 over the Mets, who's I would say in some ways their season has been more disappointing than the Royals has been, since they were expected to do great things and they've had to trade all their good players and dump salary and stuff like that. But I am, there's nothing to look at long term that you can say that the Royals are going to be good. So why even bother? So I'm just saying, well, now they've won 4 games in a row. They're 33-75 as of this TV airing, or show airing, or
Well, this
podcast
recording at least, anyway.
recording. Yeah, not airing, recording. And so they've won 4 in a row. This is the first, it's like the first actual win streak. Some people will say 2 games is not a winning streak. You have to have 3 games for a winning streak. I don't know if that's true. I'd say technically 2 is a winning streak,
Yeah.
because it's more than one. But I some people will say it needs to be 3 to have a winning streak. But in any case, this is their first 3-game stretch where they have won. Now they've won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
I think they've lost 4 in a row or more, probably
The
5, 6, 10 times, maybe. Who knows how many times this season? So it's nice to win some, and it seems like Witt is coming along, and he had a really strong uh, last week or so. Since the All Star break, he's been really good. Today he did. I think he was only 1 for 5, but he had a clutch hit in the extra innings.
drove in a run and scored the tying run.
And so yeah, the Royals, right now, yeah, it's kind of like, being a Royals fan back, as you had mentioned before we went on the air, the era when the Onion would make fun of the Royals and talked about how I think it was 2005 Royals, the dying boy was brought in to cheer up the Royals rather than the other way around. So
Yes.
it's one of those things where you just kind of have to embrace the losing and not worry about,
Maybe revel a bit in the wins themselves,
you know,
just as a brief respite from, you know, focusing on all the loss, all the losing, right?
yeah, I think so. And just enjoy. And they've beaten some, decent teams the last 4 games. It wasn't like they were playing the A's, but they lost, I think, 2 out of 3 of the A's when they played the A's. Almost got swept by the A's, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
I
But
mean, did get swept? Did they get swept by
the
the A's?
3-game win streak was actually a sweep against the first place in the division,
Twins.
Twins. Yeah.
And now they're playing the Mets, who's supposed to be very good, but they've traded their trade deadline, and we might talk about the trade deadline a little bit,
Yeah.
since the Royals have traded away a lot of players for, it doesn't seem like much in return, possibly, but who knows? But yeah, the Mets have, Scherzer and Verlander, they're 2 kind of elder statesman star pitchers that they brought in to try to.
Very expensive pieces, though, too, right?
Yeah, and they have that, how much, $200 million payroll or something like that, um
Plus, yeah.
this season, plus, so like they're paying, I think, luxury tax, but they're not going to make the playoffs.
And
And
sellers at the trade, I mean, at the trade deadline, that's what's really disheartening, I'm sure, for Mets fans. The Mets were a team that I was betting on at the beginning of the season as being able to exceed their win expectations, and they're not even close to that. They're
yeah, they flamed out at the end of last season. Like
yeah,
they were good. It seemed like they had like a 97% playoff odds, I think, like with a week to go, and then they lost all these games, and then they didn't make it. I think they made it to the play-in, like play one of the play-in games to get to the wild card game,
mm,
or something like that. Wasn't that what it was? And it's just been, yeah, kind of, well, it's par for the course, I guess, for being a Mets fan. There's a lot
yeah,
of they've had a lot of heartbreak since the '86 Miracle Mets, and so they haven't won. They lost to the Royals in 2015, and they've been kind of floundering since. They had those great young star pitchers that were supposed to be very good, and they never quite panned out. And then Matt Harvey went to the Royals eventually, so his career, you can see how far his career went downward.
yeah.
And then they couldn't, they signed Lindor. I thought, okay, it's going to be a good team, but yeah, yes, but I'm happy with the Royals, and even though they're not, the record's nowhere near, the Mets are at least around 500, but yeah, they're
Yeah. But there, I mean, but money wise, that's a lot of money to be spent for a sub 500 team, and then still be sellers at the deadline. Where,
yeah.
I mean, the Royals thought that they had marketable trade pieces like before the season started, and then they've used them in bizarre ways. I think probably lowering their trade value over the course of the season, and then, I mean, shortly before the deadline, the Royals traded one of my least favorite players on the team, Nicky Lopez. But the return was so little that it almost seems insulting to people that did not like Nicky Lopez that the return was even too low for that.
Yeah, it was. They got Taylor Hearn, who had been, I think, DFA'd by the Rangers, or had been like, was it the
He
Rangers? Then
was,
he went to the
traded
Braves for a
from
week.
he was traded from the Rangers to the Braves. He made one appearance for Atlanta, and then they DFA'd him. But he gave up
That's
4 runs in recording one out. Well, I think was most weird. Did you pull up his stats for his career?
I I'm
Did
doing that right now.
well, but well, the thing that's really strange is that so he will have like one complete line because he's finished with the Braves. So it will look like he has
Ooh, 108 ERA.
180 ERA. Okay, but that is not the only season where his complete line for a team for a season ended with a 108 ERA.
Oh, he did that with the Rangers in 2019, apparently.
Is
Point
that
one.
that has to be a unique stat, right?
Yeah, I guess it would be even more unique if he had, like, so he only threw 1/3 of an inning and allowed 4 runs.
Right.
But if it had thrown like 2/3 of an inning and allowed 8 runs, that
Yeah.
would have been even funnier, maybe. But still, yeah, he allowed actually 5 runs and only 4 earned.
Well, one of them was unearned in the Rangers
Yeah,
debut year.
he
Yeah.
had 4 walks. Like it's like everybody scored. Yeah, he actually did.
So it could have been
Uh,
worse, is what you're saying.
it could have been worse. Yeah, he only had 2 walks in 2023 in his bad inning, and he had a bailout, a home run, um, 2 hits. Yeah, he had a fielding independent ERA of 60.27 this year, 39.21 in 2019. So I guess he technically had a somewhat theoretically better game in 2019 when he did so terribly, but
Yes.
his ERA this season is 14.73 across the 2 teams. He had a 10.29 ERA when he left Texas, so he
With
has,
like was it like 7 innings pitched or something too? So it wasn't
yeah, he's pitched 7.1 innings now total. He's allowed 12 earned runs,
that great.
6 walks, 11 hits, 7 strikeouts.
There was a Casey Starr article about the trade, and they mentioned his 2023 stats as being with a 3.77 ERA, which are his minor league stats. So those are they did not the article did not mention that it was that they were describing his minor league season. And so like it was very deceptive the way they wrote it. I mean, I'd seen the stat line, but it was very strange to see that, at least anyway, that
Yeah, but
the article was written so poorly that
I guess the Royals think, oh, maybe we can do something with Hearn and maybe tweak something to make him serviceable. But I
I mean,
thought
you
the
have to do that
Giants were
with
also
anybody.
interested.
I don't
I had
know.
read an article that the Giants were supposed to be interested in Lopez as well. So you would think, well, there might be something of a bidding war. And
You could at least wait a day because the trade was made a full day before the deadline.
yeah,
They could have waited just a little bit and maybe gotten a little more, but this doesn't seem weird anyway. But they also traded Scott Barlow, who was their closer, Ryan Yarbrough, who had recently come back from in pretty major
injury.
injury, but had been quite good in his return.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Jose Cuas
was
traded away.
Was, who was one of their more serviceable relievers, but used very poorly by the team in scenarios where he has not done well at all. They continued to use him repeatedly in scenarios where they knew he doesn't do well. That's what is infuriating to me watching the team with, you know, being able to look at basic statistics and know this is a bad idea.
Yeah, he was very bad with inherited runners. Like every, oh,
Terrible.
yeah,
And with more data than usually you would have, because he'd done this a lot and he'd been bad and continued to be bad. So
but yeah, and from
bad.
what it looked like, the prospects that the Royals got in these trades, even outside the Nicky Lopez trade, doesn't seem terribly exciting.
Maybe most
Maybe
concerning of it though is that they didn't fill the role that you thought that everyone seems to think the team is missing, franchise is missing, and that's like talent in the middle tier, like the high A to like triple A. There's only like one player that they got that even fits into that category in
yeah,
like 6 or 7 prospects that they picked up at the deadline. And I don't know that you could call some of the players prospects. Like Hernan, I'm not sure is technically a prospect. He's had parts of 4 seasons in the major leagues, right? So that's not really prospect status anymore. That is just a major league player, right?
yeah, like yeah. So they got um Jesus Rios and Henry Williams for Scott Barlow.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Williams is, yeah, like a young lottery ticket. Jesus Rios is, as I think we saw his stats, like he was he was terrible in the Mexican League, and then he became terrible in the Dominican League, and now the Royals have him, and supposedly he will somehow be better in the American minors or major leagues.
He's already old for the Dominican League. He's 21 and not doing great in the Dominican League, which is not usually a good sign, at least anyway.
Yeah,
He's old for the Dominican League, but because usually that league I think is like 18, 19-year olds.
yeah, it's like the rookie league for the Latin players rather than the draft eligible kind of American players.
Mm,
It seems like is why it's how it's usually been used lately.
yeah.
The Yarbrough trade maybe has better because they got Devin Mann, who could be a solid kind of maybe. I guess again, Nicky Lopez or like a high level Nicky Lopez or maybe a Whit Merrifield type is the ideal, perhaps. Kind of late. He's 26, so a little bit late, maybe blooming. Um, he can play basically every position. He's played shortstop and first base and second and third and outfield this year. He has a good on base percentage in Triple A. He's, I guess probably blocked by better players in the Dodgers organization. So like maybe that could be but he was only I think ranked 29th or something like that out of the Dodgers prospects, at least
Right.
according to MLB, which is
Probably because he's old for
yeah,
a prospect though too. So
yeah. And then they got another kind of lottery ticket, Darlene Figueroa, 19-year-old shortstop prospect. So who knows? But I don't remember who they got for Quas.
Nelson Velasquez is an outfielder. Has been playing parts of 2 seasons with the Cubs. Seems to have a little bit of power. Major league level, like 9 home runs in 90 games.
That's not bad.
Yeah, looks like he plays all the outfield positions. Pretty low batting average. Looks like he doesn't strike out. Its strikeout numbers are a little high. But yeah, his average is low, and
Yeah, they also traded some cash to the Angels for another bullpen arm, Tucker Davidson, who hasn't been that good. He's been like you mentioned. Did you mention him earlier?
I did not, but I had his stats up here anyway. But
Yeah,
yeah,
6.15 ERA and 105 innings in the majors.
in the
So that's
majors,
not so
yeah.
bad.
So like those types of guys, I think you can pick up off waivers, which essentially this is the Tucker
Yeah,
Davidson. I think he'd been DFA'd, and I think they so I think
it's like it's like a guarantee getting him rather than like trying to compete with all the other teams to pick up Kyle. So it might make sense. Maybe you throw a couple $100,000 at the Angels.
yeah,
I don't know.
I think they just
Um,
need arms. I guess they're just trying to get to the
he had a
season.
like strong peripheral kind of advanced statistics. I think he only had a 3.37 like expected ERA or something like that, even though it was 6.5 his regular ERA this year. So like maybe he just had some bad luck, or maybe it's bad defense. But
I don't
the
know if he
Royals defense
was.
probably isn't.
It's enough to make that up. Yeah.
I
There
don't
was
know
a
if it's
time like the 2014, 2015 seasons for the Royals, like they're like all of the pitchers earned run averages were lower than than the FIP, which is a sign of a good defense, right? So
fielding independent ERA. Yeah.
so
Um,
if you're looking at trade partners and you see a player with a low FIP but a high ERA, that's who you should be targeting. And I don't know that they can do that right now. Because you might be able to like leverage the price of that player down because their ERA is inflated.
yeah.
But I mean, they're not trying to like acquire
But it
any.
seems like those are the same players that the Royals would have. Like, oh, he would be good if he was on a better team with better fielding, but he's got really high ERA. So like anybody the Royals are trading away versus getting, it seems like all the players they're going to get are going to be, or they're going to give away, are going to be like that because the Royals fielding has not been very good this year. It's not like
Hmm.
Lorenzo Kane and Alex
Yeah,
Gordon are in the outfield, and peak Alcides Escobar and you know at shortstop. It's
right. We have a catcher
yeah,
as a corner outfielder, so I mean, what do you expect?
yeah. Yeah, Melendez, they're trying, I guess, not to. I don't know. He seems to be like a new Mike Sweeney. They're trying to just, but at least they put Sweeney at first rather than in. I don't know. Like, I guess it was also possible the Royals were going to trade Salvador Perez. Did you hear about that? Like, maybe
They
that was a
said that he
possibility.
has a no trade clause though, so it wouldn't have. I mean, that was all talk. But they didn't move Singer either. That they talked about Singer being moved. They talked about Carlos Hernandez being moved. They did not move either of them. So I mean, I'm happy to hear that. And I thought those were guys that have a place on the team for a couple years at least anyway. There's no reason to trade them.
Yeah, I would say like why not? Well, you've talked about this before. Hernandez probably should be a starter for the Royals, or they should try to start. But he was a good starter 2 years ago, and then they decided, well, we're going to put him in the bullpen for some reason, and we've left him in the bullpen. He had a good outing again tonight. I think
Mm.
he was. Yeah, I don't
I
understand why
mean,
he's not a starter.
he gave the 2 run homer, but he ended up getting the win.
Okay,
Yeah. So
I saw the win. He had a win and a save the last couple of nights.
yeah, so tonight he got his first win. Sunday night he got his first save. So back to back games, big firsts for Carlos Hernandez. Yeah, does that? I was just thinking about this. Yeah, does the Carlos Hernandez giving up the 2 run homer, does that count as 2 earned runs? One earned, one unearned?
Oh, because of the
The bequeath.
uh bequeathed runner, the inherited extra inning. Are they going to do that next year too, or is that just
I'm not
still
sure.
a
It
COVID?
sounds like it's here to stay. I don't know why they would change it. So
It's
yeah,
just
what do you think it does? Does it count as an earned run? Because he did not put the guy on.
I think it must because it probably counts as an earned run because doesn't it count as it counts as an RBI for the hitter?
Yeah,
So I would guess it's just well if you come on and it's somebody else's like like it's if it's an inherited runner it doesn't count for you
for you, it counts for
but
the
you're
last
not
one.
it counts for the last person but in this case there's no one to get inherit it from
Nobody put him on, so he's just
unless you assign it
goes
to the
down.
person who finished the previous inning somehow.
Yes.
I guess you have to count it as an earned run. I don't know. What do you know? Does it say?
Yeah, they he has it listed as 2 runs allowed, 1 earned.
Hmm. I would
So
say I think that's the fair thing to do, but I
yeah,
don't think that's the consistent thing to
yeah.
do
But he didn't put the runner on though, so I don't think you can give
because
it.
I don't think it should really count as it shouldn't count as an RBI then either or any because if it's not going to count against a pitcher I don't think it should count for a hitter
That's fair.
because otherwise like on the inherited side like it counts against somebody and so it can
Yeah.
count for somebody
But
and
I mean, it counts against the counting stat of runs allowed, but not
yeah but
the RA
earned
portion of it.
I
Yeah.
guess it makes sense. It makes sense, but I don't. I that's one reason why it's a dumb rule because it
It is a
creates
dumb rule. It doesn't make any
scenarios
sense
that
to have a ghost runner.
yeah, like why do you, and it's on second base too, which is I
Yeah.
guess it eliminates the double play possibility, which would be more unfair. I guess
Yeah.
if you have a runner first, he's hitting a ground ball, and then it's 2 outs after one batter.
Yeah.
But it's still possible to have 2 outs after one batter in
Yeah.
extra innings, which also I think is unfair because you only had one batter. You should be able to have 2 outs result from it. It's just a
Well, I mean, a lot of teams they just try to score that 1 run, so they'll like bunt the first guy will just bunt the runner over to third, and then sack fly. You've done basically nothing and
yeah
scored a run that you didn't earn in any way, right?
yeah, but then you've wasted 2 outs, and then you have nobody on and 2 outs, and
Yeah.
then it's
I guess if you pitched your way out of it, the first like the top half of the inning, if you're the home team, then that's what you should do in the bottom half. It's boring, but it's almost a guaranteed win, though, right?
yeah if you're not the Royals because the Royals don't have
They'd figure
you
out
know
how to mess it up, but maybe not this week because they've won 4 games this in the last 4 games.
yeah maybe this is the time they turn around and they will go on a they I think they're 33 and 75. They played 108 games, so they have 54 games left. So I guess they could go 30, 35 and 19.
Well, if they
They
won,
still would be under for our total because we had
yeah,
said they were going to be over 68 and a half, over
8.5, I think
69.
so. Think about it this way, Mike. If they won the next 40 games, they would just cross the 500 mark.
A 40 game winning streak, which would be that would be a 44 game winning streak that they'd have, which
Yes.
would obliterate any winning streak in Major League history. I think the eight was it the 2002 or ish A's and Moneyball A's like
Oh,
like
right. Yeah.
21 wins or something like that.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
I think and they got their last win against the Royals
Yeah.
uh,
That's
when
right.
they
And
were way ahead and then they were down and they came back. I
it
think
was like an epic comeback too, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
it's sad. I don't know. We should. I don't want to talk about the Royals anymore.
no,
Do we have any other
how about
baseball?
this as a trade deadline?
Okay.
One, do you like the trade deadline because it's like a forced um event that happens where like everybody's involved in some way even if they're out of it, or way ahead there's they're still trying to get better. uh do you like the trade deadline as an event, and then two, which teams do you think came out the best in the trade deadline.
I do like the trade deadline. I understand. And I think it makes sense why you have it. So like teams can't collude and like get something for nothing at the end of the season, and so like it keeps things fair, and it does something. I think it provides a little bit of drama in the summer for teams that are both out of it and in possibly in it. So like I do like the trade deadline. Like I think maybe it could be moved back even a little bit, but I also like having the last 2 months as sort of pure, or I guess using waiver wire deals or whatever if you want. But
I think that's
um
out now. I don't think you can do waiver trades anymore.
oh, okay. Is
I
that why
think
they
they have
moved?
officially like ended that
Is
era.
that why they moved the trade deadline back a few days? Because it used to always be the
It was
July
July.
28th or
Um,
31st or something. Now
yeah.
it's like early August usually.
Now it's the
Um,
1st of August. I guess they moved it back like a day. I don't know why.
yeah. I like having it. They have it
Yeah.
in football. Um, and it wasn't much of anything in football until recently. I think in football, the trade deadline doesn't work as well because usually you can't get integrated into the offense or the
Right.
defense very quickly because it takes a lot of off-season work. And so, but baseball, it doesn't like you just have to maybe learn the signals, but like you're doing the exact
Yeah.
same thing. It's a plug and play kind of
Well,
system.
and now with the earpiece and catcher's device, they don't have to like learn it necessarily
Yeah,
complicated signals anymore. If
yeah. I
you're
guess you
pitching,
may if you're a base runner, I guess maybe you do or something like
that part
that.
of it,
But yeah, it's one of those things where baseball it's easy. Like if you switch, like they have players switch uniforms in the middle of a double header historically and play for the one
yeah.
team
Right.
game one and then the other team in game two, and like yeah, it works just like you're still doing the exact same thing. You know where left field is. You know where the you hit the it's everything's the same. Football's a little
Yeah.
more complicated. Basketball's kind of similar. There might be a little bit of an offense system that you learn, but like it's basically just five guys running around kind of in a
Shooting
somewhat
and
cohesive
blocking,
passing.
stuff like that. It's all the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do like having it.
Yeah.
Um so do you like the trade before I decide who won the trade deadline? Do you like the trade deadline as well?
Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah, it gives you like even if you're completely out of it, you've got a little hope, about getting better faster. By trading maybe expensive players that you're not going to have control over for too much longer, for hopefully getting better in the future. So it's like maybe a way to skip ahead, but yeah, it's disappointing to see like like with the Royals did with this trade deadline. It's like they didn't really seemingly fill the gap from where they what they needed. If they're trying to rebuild their minor league system, the draft, trade deadline, they didn't do that at all, and at all. So, yeah, if I had to give like an initial grade on the Royals' performance, in the non-baseball activities of like this part, it's a gigantic F. It's just terrible watching them do this. So it's like I guess in some way though, the trade deadline needs to be there, and it makes me feel something. It makes me I'm still hopeful even though they seemingly organizationally can't do anything at all. That makes any kind of sense from a rational analysis level. So it is frustrating, but it still makes me like feel something though, which is still I guess good in some way. But yeah,
As
I kind of
Sigmund Freud once said, "There's nothing worse than a succession of fair days," meaning,
yeah.
yeah, you have even having bad at least helps you feel different from just monotony,
Yeah.
which is, I would
Oh,
say, so. Like, I think there's some truth uh, to that, but yeah, I think the Royals didn't do very well, but like they're already doing so terribly that they aren't going to win the trade deadline, and they have such they don't have like if
win. I
if
just
they
have to at least try to add a prospect that you won't have heard of them, right? I mean, we don't
yeah
follow
they're 40
every
games,
other
so they're
team's minor
500.
league systems to know, but you'd think that you get at least a prospect that you know other analysts think is a decent prospect or is referred to as a prospect, not a failed major leaguer or a fringe interesting player that already has some major league experience. it's not. I mean, they didn't fill any of the gap of,
Yeah.
depleting your minor league system by calling them all up to the majors. In like 3 years, you will have replenished that anyway. But the idea here was to skip ahead in that process and not have to wait 3 years for rookie league guys to become AAA players. You could get AA players now that'll be AAA players next year. So you're like rebuilding your system in a shorter amount of time. And they didn't do any of that at all.
Well, part of that might be because the Royals were so bad that they don't like if they're that bad, that means none of the players on the team can command any decent prospects. They were so bad. Like maybe there were only 20 games under 500, then there might be some more appealing players that might think, oh, well, they would help the Royals become, well, like it's like the Mets. Like, the Mets were 5 games under 500 when they traded their guys away. And I'm sure they got a lot better prospects because they were also a lot better players. But it's like the Mets were disappointing because everybody thought they were going to be really good,
Right.
and then they were just like mediocre to slightly worse. And the Royals, they thought, well, maybe they'll be mediocre to slightly worse. They were actually really, really bad. So like, all like
Yeah.
there weren't any like unless they traded Salvador Perez or Singer or somebody good, they weren't going to get anybody good in return probably. Um,
Yeah.
so
But like
I
it seemed like what they were trying to do here was like the last week they were like trying to market certain players to other teams by like doing a thing that no one else cares about. So like on the last day of Nicky Lopez's Kansas City tenure, they had him start at first base. I was like, oh, this will raise his value so high that we'll get somebody who, has once thrown 99 miles an hour. That's like basically what they've done, essentially. Like nobody cares about utility infielders. That's not a thing that anyone values at all. Like if you have a guy that can hit and maybe he can play a second position, well, that may have some value, but that it just seems like they want to have guys that are defensive guys first, and then they can be okay. Maybe they deliver a big hit in a weird game sometime. That isn't something anyone else values at all. So that's
yeah.
that's what's disappointing is like, if you can see if you can build some value in some way, and the Royals have like done the wrong thing with their players. They don't it seem like they know how to market their players to other teams either. So it's really kind of disappointing to see what they do on many levels, not just the direct this guy got traded for this guy. That doesn't look very impressive. But like all of this is like a season long thing that they could have built to a trade, but they like screwed all of them over, and they've actually hurt these players' careers by how they've been using them too, which is, another level of stupid that this organization continues to seem to
I
do.
guess I see it more as well. We got rid of the crap that we know is bad, and
Yeah,
we brought in some unknown. Like they might all be terrible, but at least it's different terrible players. But
sure.
then they might turn out to be better. So like I don't think the Royals got a lot of great stuff, but I don't know if it's because they missed out on getting great players or just because that was what was available and they got what
Yeah.
was available, and at least they got rid of, like, it's like a garage sale. You aren't looking to make a ton of money, you just want to get rid of your old stuff more than anything, and maybe this is just getting rid of some of this stuff, and
But it seems
we
like they
brought
got
in
a
some
lot
new
more
stuff that
stuff in
maybe.
return. Like the number of players they got was more than the players that they got rid of, right? So is have they just gotten more stuff? They've still ended up accumulating more stuff though, Mike.
Well, they did, but now we can say, well, maybe some of this stuff is actually better than we thought. Like, we know this old book isn't very good, but now we got two kind of tattered books. Maybe one of these is actually a first edition or something valuable or something. Maybe it's we're sharp antique dealers or something like that. But yeah, I see your point, but like it's hard to like. I don't think the Royals were going to get like the next
Oh
Ronald
no.
Acuna or somebody in
Yeah.
this prospect trade. So I
Yeah.
don't.
But I mean, they at least could have gotten somebody that was valued even by the organization as being considered a prospect, period.
Yeah,
Right.
maybe they can get a Donald Acuna or a
There
somebody like
was
that.
there was an Acuna in the Scherzer trade.
That's right. Yeah,
Uh, yeah, it's Ronald Acuna's little brother, I think, isn't it?
that's right. That's why I was thinking Ronald Acuna.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why he was on my mind. But like,
yeah.
yeah, like of the teams that did the best, I would say it seems like it was American League teams. Like it was Rangers that got a lot of stuff, got a lot of good players. The Astros did with Verlander, especially at the end. He won a Cy Young last year with them. Now he's back on the team after signing this huge contract with the Mets. The Angels seem like maybe they got better too.
In
Um,
the last week, they went from being sellers, like possibly even trading Otani,
yeah,
to being buyers instead, and then acquired, I think, what, starting pitching and maybe a couple other pieces too. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty crazy, like how, a 1 week sample size can turn an owner from being potentially selling off the team to, spending more money,
Mhm.
right?
yeah.
It's much more fun to be on that side of things than on like,
I'm still kind of remember, reveling in the 2014, 2015 Royals when they got, Ben Zobrist and Johnny Cueto in 2015 to,
yeah.
so like yeah, it's better to be one of those teams, but I guess I don't know, it's still interesting. It gives you a little bit of boost of baseball because there's not a whole lot else going on other, I guess now we have the Women's World Cup happening in Australia, New Zealand. Have you watched any of the games? They're all like at 2 in the morning
Yeah, I
yesterday
watched
or the day.
the first game, but I did
The
not watch
Viet
the other.
the Vietnam
I watched part of the second game. I did watch.
USA almost got bogged down in another quagmire in Vietnam, but they emerged victorious against a team they probably should have beaten like 9-0, and they won kind of lackluster 3-0. Then they tied the Netherlands, who ended up
Pretty
winning the
decent
group,
game.
and then they tied Portugal, who was also a little bit below the USA's level, and so they were 1-0-2, or 1-2-0 if you do it the weird soccer way,
Yeah.
win draw loss rather than win lose or draw.
Yeah.
Um, but so it's the Americans made it to the knockout round of 16.
What did
But what do you
what did the Netherlands do in their last game? I didn't see that. Did they win their game? So did the US
yeah,
finish second?
the Netherlands beat Portugal and they beat Vietnam, so they were 2-0-1, and they had 7 points. The USA was 1-0-2, and they had 5 points, and then Portugal was 1-1-1, so they had 4 points. So they finished third in the group, and they almost had they made their goal, like there was like a shot off the post in the last like minutes of extra time that they would have, if had they made had that gone in, the United States would have been going home.
Been out. Yeah.
And Vietnam lost all three because nobody expected them to win. But
Yeah.
this was one of those games where, like 4 years ago, the USA played, who they played, like was it Thailand or something, and they ran up the score and they were like hot dogging it and like celebrating each of the goals, like when it was like 8-0, like as if they had won the World Cup. And like I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of stupid the way they did that, but at least they could score a lot of goals. This time they can't. I don't know if do you remember that? Do you remember that controversy?
Yeah.
The kind of Megan Rapinoe leg farts that she did when she scored to go up 7-0 over like the hapless Thai team.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was Thailand, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. I remember.
13, oh, it was 13-0. 13-0. They beat
Yeah.
Thailand. Um, yeah, Alex Morgan scored 5 goals. Yeah, Rapinoe scored in the 79th minute to put them up like 10-0, and then like she like it was this huge celebration. Like she like slid and like it was like as if that was like the winning goal of the World Cup. They celebrated like
Yeah.
that, and like it became like the sort of controversy about should they be able to celebrate, and like if you kind of poo-pooed their celebration, it was because you were against women or something like that. But like it was one of those things where like a men's team would not do that because if you're the World Cup, you're not going to beat anybody 13-0 because there aren't going to be any teams that would probably be that bad in the World Cup. Although maybe in this one, because in the next 2026 World Cup in the United States, Mexico, and Canada, there's going to be 48 teams, so maybe there'll be a really bad team. But that's what this Vietnam team probably wasn't much better than that Thailand team that the USA played. I would guess, just I don't know, maybe just because I'm thinking Southeast Asian countries that probably were in their first World Cups, and the USA only won 3-0 against them, whereas they won 13-0 4 years ago. They aren't as good as they were 4 years ago, I
Sure.
don't think.
It seems
Maybe
like
they're not as
the rest of the world has advanced, I think, too, right? And the US team, I think, is somewhat, and not all the best players are available, or are aging, right? So
yeah, like a lot of the best players, like Carly Lloyd is gone.
yeah.
Rapinoe is older now. Rose Lavelle has been hurt. Now she has like yellow cards that she can't play in
Oh, is that
knockout games. Yeah, I think she has 2 yellow cards, and so she can't play again in the round of 16 against Sweden, I believe.
Sweden's the next one? Yeah.
And
So
Sweden,
when is the next game?
um, it is going to be
So
on.
must be on the weekend.
Uh, yeah, I don't. Sunday at 3 a.m. Eastern. So what? Saturday night, Sunday. But it's I guess it's I don't know what day it is there. It'll be Monday, maybe. Oops, Sunday there, Monday. Who knows? I'm always confused about the Australia
The international
date
dateline, and yeah,
dateline because it's the next day, but it's also like the same time. Like yeah. It's maybe it'll be like it. I think it's probably going to be a primetime night game in Australia, and it's 3 a.m. here, so it's like 7 p.m.
yeah,
on Sunday night. But it's 3 a.m. on Sunday morning here, so it's like Saturday night, so it's like the next day mostly. But yeah, I don't think any international events should be in Australia because no population. I guess I guess Asia. There's a lot of Asian viewers and things like that.
yeah,
But maybe I'm just a chauvinist about Western culture that North, South America, and Europe should be the ones considered. They're the ones paying all the money for the rights. I don't think the Chinese broadcasting system doesn't pay any money to FIFA. I don't think to broadcast the World Cup. Not like it seems like only the American networks pay all the money because I think most of the other countries have like state broadcasting systems that
yeah,
automatically do it. So there's no like competition or anything
right.
um,
There's no
to
actual
line
money
FIFA's
involved in it.
pockets. Yeah. Um, so it should be based basically around USA television viewership, I think. But
So why don't they just play it on the US schedule then? That's the other way to do it, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. That's
yeah,
what they did. That's what we do. Like in the that's what we did when we hosted the World Cup in '94. Basically, all the games were played in the daytime, which was dumb because like it gets to be 100 some degrees here, and like so we play at night. But daytime here is night in Europe, so that's why they
yeah,
wanted to watch it. Um,
yeah. If you
but
start
like
a game at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in Central Time or something, 9 o'clock Eastern, it's like 3 a.m. in Europe, right? So
yeah, yeah. So like I guess advertisers around the the pitch you know but it's like I don't know, it's like McDonald's and Coca-Cola and you know you wonder, do they actually increase sales that much because they're at the World Cup? Like everybody knows what they are
yeah,
anyway. Like I don't know, it's one of those, I guess, what does advertising really bring you
right. Well,
at
then
this
how good is
point?
your product if someone forgets about it, if they haven't been, told about it again in the last 8 minutes?
Yeah, we need Don Draper here to explain how
Yes.
advertising works. But it's like, yeah, Coke or Pepsi or whatever. It's like, that's what's there. It's maybe in some countries, maybe it's a little bit more like of a novelty or something, but it's yeah, it's the same sponsors for every major
Yeah.
event. Budweiser, Coke, McDonald's, Toyota or whatever. Maybe, I don't know,
All
maybe
the
the
all the car companies, yeah.
car companies change, or the
Yeah.
Heineken or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, I guess I remember the Olympics. because like when the internet came around, like the Olympics, like they used to be able to really kind of, people wouldn't know what happened in the Olympics, like if they were uh
Yeah,
held in Australia or Japan or someplace like that, because there wasn't the 24-hour news cycle and like everything online that you could see instantly, because nobody wants to stay up at 2. You could just wait till the NBC primetime package at 7 o'clock the next evening. They still do that somewhat on the Olympics for like
yeah.
gymnastics and stuff. Um,
Especially for
because
like the big highlight events, at least anyway, or the surprising outcomes. They'll get
yeah,
in the main package, right?
yeah. So it's not I don't know. I'm sure Australia and New Zealand deserve to have the. They're much more deserving to host the Women's World Cup than Qatar was deserving to host the Men's World Cup, which was a
Right. And that
disaster.
ended up, freezing out all of the like liquor beer companies.
Yeah, it was just done because FIFA is very corrupt and they were bribed and
What? What?
yeah, it's funny how I don't know that this is tolerated uh so much. Like it's sort of a part, like we think of American government, American system as being very corrupt, but like it's nothing compared to like traditional kind of European and like African and like international ways of doing business.
Yeah.
It's a Our corruption here is very minuscule compared to like traditional corruption in other non-English speaking parts of the world, especially. It's um
Yeah.
there's a good documentary on FIFA corruption on Netflix from I think it aired right before the World Cup. If you don't want to watch it, but it also talks about like CONCACAF and stuff like that, how it was like run basically by these little Caribbean like strongmen basically that were able to,
Kingpins of some kind.
yeah, because the voting of those little countries that don't have any say or have a good team or anything, but it weighs so much. And if you pay that country a lot of money, you can, sway all the votes to
Yeah.
vote way. And usually the United States was also became U.S. soccer became pretty corrupt, involved in a lot of those things where I don't think we don't really think about like Major League Baseball and the NFL as being that corrupt, although maybe in the post-truth era with conspiracy theories. We think the NFL is, rigged and scripted and stuff like that.
Well, I mean,
But
they're technically a what answer to Congress, right? So they can't do anything too crazy.
yeah,
Because they're technically not for profits, and
they have a monopoly. Like,
and
no, the
all
MLB
the
has monopoly
financials
protection.
are public information then too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those. Yeah, I guess there's it's mostly domestic, so there's not as much international kind of
Yeah.
intrigue that the IOC has or the
Well, there had been talk about the NFL shedding that not-for-profit status, though, so that they could hide salaries. Like that may be actually why they wanted to, or they would
yeah.
consider being in not losing that not-for-profit status.
I think there's
Then they wouldn't answer to Congress anymore, and
there
right,
mhm. There are
yeah,
governmental interests that are interested in it. Also, I think gambling interests are interested in seeing how much things are made, and so like there's that here that is a little bit different from some of the, I guess, some. It seems like the domestic leagues in a lot of the countries are not as corrupt as the international conglomerations or
well, sure, yeah.
confederations are. Um, Although I think there are also there were lots of problems like Italian soccer and things like that. But like you don't think of the Premier League as being as shady or something as maybe,
Yeah.
but also might just be English speaking business and government culture compared to non-English
Aren't most of
speaking.
the owners of the Premier League teams now like,
Well, the Russian billionaires, although some of them were, but they had to sell. A lot of them had to sell their
oh yeah,
teams because of the invasion. And Americans own a lot of the Premier League
oh, I thought it was
teams
mostly like
now.
oil money that
There is that too, but like
was
I think,
owned like half the Premier League teams. Is that not? Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Russian and Middle Eastern financial interests, right? Aren't they controlling a lot of the Premier
Yeah,
team?
but the United States owns so the Premier League. I'm just looking at right now. Um, Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Rams, owns Arsenal.
Yeah.
Aston Villa is owned by Egyptian and American together.
Okay.
Bournemouth is American. Brentford is uh, British. There's a lot of weird teams in the Premier League now this year. Brighton is British ownership. Burnley is an American major owner group. Chelsea is American. So like it was Abramovich or somebody that was chose a Russian guy who owned Chelsea, but then now it's Americans who own Chelsea.
No.
Uh, Everton is owned by a British slash Iranian guy. Shahid Khan, who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, who is Pakistani American, owns Fulham. Liverpool's owned by Americans now. Um, Manchester City is mostly owned by Abu Dhabi, but some of them, the Glazers, the Tampa Bay owners, they own Manchester United. So like, it seems like I
I
think
didn't realize that at all.
Americans own more Premier League teams than anyone right now.
Really? That's
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't know. I did not know that.
Americans and British, it looks like primarily, but there's a lot of outside ownership. Like it's not quite like um yeah, it seems like there's a lot of US involvement in even down to the lower leagues, but it's more British the English and Welsh the farther down you go. But in
Sure.
Premier League, it looks like one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, at least nine out of the 20
So
Premier League teams are owned majority by Americans.
almost half.
Yeah,
That's pretty crazy. Hmm.
yeah. I think that has changed a little bit because with the invasion, I don't think there are as many Russian oligarchs in international soccer, at least not in British soccer anymore.
No.
But back to the women's World Cup chances. It seems like I don't know. They aren't as good this year. The world is caught up. What odds do you think? Do you think the chances are better that the United States loses to Sweden in the round of 16? Sweden won their group. The USA finished second in theirs.
Hmm.
You think the odds are better the USA wins the whole thing or loses to Sweden in the round of 16?
I mean, based on the most recent performance and like just what you just said, it seems like the more likely scenario is that they're out. But you don't have to win your group to win the World Cup, right? So uh you just have to make it into the round of 16 to have a chance. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
think I
you
will expect the worst, and then if the better thing happens, I'll be very happy. That's what I'd rather do it that way. Think about it from the underwhelming side is the expectation, and then hope for the best, but expect the worst. Is that
according to the FIFA rankings, USA is number one.
yes?
Sweden is number three.
Yeah.
Germany is two. England four. France five. Six. Spain. Netherlands is nine. And Portugal's 21.
So
I
in
don't know
in
what.
this
Oh, Vietnam was 32. So Vietnam was a little higher, maybe, than I thought they would be. Uh, Thailand is 44. It's actually not that much. But
but so in this particular game though, US has a higher ranking, lower ranking, higher ranking.
ordinarily
They have,
higher.
they have a better ranking right there. So they
Yeah.
should be expected to win by ranking. But by seeding, they're much lower, right? As they did not win their group, Sweden did win their group. So Sweden should be actually favored by performance in this immediate tournament, right?
I think I don't yeah, so if the USA wins against Sweden, they'll play the winner of Japan and Norway, and then they would play the probably the Netherlands or Spain after that, and England probably and is in the other bracket. Yeah, I think I saw somewhere that the USA still has a they gave USA a 24% chance to win the whole thing, according to odds. I think that was the highest still of any team. I think England or somebody was 20%, or Spain maybe was 20%
Yeah.
um, to win. So
Well, if it's just random odds, that would be much less than 20%.
okay, so right now the current odds, Women's World Cup winners, USA is plus 350, Spain plus 450, England plus 450, Japan plus 800, Germany plus 800, Sweden is plus 2,500, but that's probably largely based on
Having to face the US.
having faced the United States. Yeah.
Would you take the USA plus 350 right now?
No, um, I don't. I don't know who I would take,
Yeah.
but I don't think the USA has been very good, especially with Lavelle out. The next game, I think she's their best player, but she's also been hurt, and I don't know. I mean, I think Rapinoe is a little old. I don't think their finishing has been really bad, so they don't score goals. Their defense has been really good, but all you have to do is allow one goal and you're gone. So,
Yeah.
and that's gonna. Then I guess you can score one fluke goal too, but it seems like the USA is not scoring fluke goals. They're only um, allowing perhaps fluke goals to score. So I think when you rest on your defense, that's in any sport, it's iffy. And
It's
so
it's a
I
risky
like
game at best, right?
yeah I don't think defense wins championships. I've never been one of those people. I think it's offense wins championships, and you have to have a defense that is good enough.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how the USA has been good. They've scored goals, and I guess you don't really need to score goals in like yeah, it's like men's World Cup has shown. Like you can get a lot of 0-0 ties and then win penalty kick shootouts to advance.
Hmm.
But I say it's probably more likely that the USA loses to Sweden than wins the World Cup. I don't think the USA is out of it, but I don't think the USA is going to.
You think if the US wins the next game, if they will then roll from there? Is this like the game that like gives them that spark? Or do you think they weren't trying so hard before and now maybe they're
Yeah.
gonna wake up? Or is this just the level that they're gonna
I,
perform for this tournament?
I think it depends on how they win. If they win 5-0 against Sweden, I'll say, oh, they woke up and they could roll. But
Yeah.
if they eke out a penalty kick shootout or 1-0 win, I don't think that shows a lot. So I don't think there's. So I would say if you know they I would say for me to like at least change my mind about how well they're doing, they would need to dominate. They haven't had a really good game yet. So sometimes teams like Italy in the past, men's teams like they barely make it out of the group stage, but then they you know play well in the knockout rounds and win the World Cup, even though
Yeah.
they aren't like the best team. But I guess that way sometimes having a good defense can um, help you. But I still think that you need to score goals.
But
Whether
maybe
it's
they're in this mindset where they know that they're ranked number one in FIFA, but maybe they just want to like feel like they're the underdog, so they're having to accomplish more. It's hard for a number one overall to be an underdog, though,
Mhm.
right? But and maybe they have just created the scenario where now they are an underdog. Is that a possibility?
I suppose. Maybe. I think that's a lot of.
That's not at
Um,
all what I thought you were just gonna say no.
I
That's
don't think it is, but I think it's fanciful. But I guess anything is possible. The USA apparently was plus 250 originally to win. Now they're plus 350.
it's not
Um,
that far off. I mean,
Spain has gone from plus 350 to plus 450. England has gone down from plus 500 to plus 450. Japan has really made a big leap. They were plus 3,300 to plus 800. I think because Japan, um, they beat, it was Germany. They won 4-0 against Germany or
Hmm.
somebody like one of the European powers. I haven't
Japan
really
was the
followed it
last.
that.
Japan was the last non-US winner,
Mhm.
though. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that was a yeah,
12 years ago.
12 years ago. Yeah,
So that wouldn't be crazy, but also that's the same sort of it's just like two teams win the last five.
yeah. Well, Japan, I guess, also was kind of a out of nowhere team to win. Not out of nowhere, but like an unexpected. The USA was heavily favored to win that World
Hmm.
Cup. Probably more heavily favored to win in 2009 or 2011. Excuse me, 2011 than it was either of the last two times they actually won. I think they were a better. I think that was their best team.
But
Um, I think that was still when um, that was when the young Rapinoe and young Carly Lloyd and
right.
um, Abby Wambach was playing, and when they had like their better players. Um, but
That game is Sunday, early Sunday morning.
yeah,
Are you setting your alarm or just staying up to watch that game, Mike?
probably not. I will probably be at MJ's house, so I probably won't watch it at 3 in the morning. But I will be following it somewhat. Maybe if they make it's I don't know. I'm old. I don't wake up or stay up that late anymore.
That'll
Are
be,
you gonna
that'll
watch
be
it?
the first thing when you reach for your phone when you wake up. What did the US do?
I don't know. I check ESPN a lot, so I would probably just do that. I kind of out of habit, and then I would see what happened. Although lately,
Sunday morning, like, oh, I forgot. And then you like it just pops up as a headline, and then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah, yeah. All day today, though, if I looked at ESPN, it was like women's basket. It was the WNBA that was like they're really trying to really publicize the WNBA,
Yeah.
which I understand maybe why, but I don't know if that's really um, where they that if that really brings in a lot of revenue. I think it's social reasons and maybe to do that, but I don't know if it's a really good business model just to
I
promote
think
the
they have a,
WNBA.
well, I think they have a vested interest to like increase the profile of the league.
Yeah,
But, but I mean, every league has needed external factors to become successful, though, right? So if it's going to become a mainstream league, then you know somebody like ESPN has to be behind it. So that right?
yeah, I suppose. But you also though think that maybe it begins with um, attendance at the games rather than followers on TV first. At least that's where most things have been. I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. I don't think it really matters. I think they're just trying to like you know play off of like the NCAA women's tournament was really intensely watched, I think, across the country this last season. And if you want to roll viewers from the players that they saw and liked in the college tournament, now they're in the WNBA. So
well,
what you're trying to like play off of whatever
a few
momentum
are. Caitlin
they have.
Clark is like the biggest stars are
Yeah,
are not
they
probably.
were already in the league, right? So
Yeah, I
but
guess the
if they got new viewers from like the women's NCAA tournament, some of those people might become WNBA fans if they're marketed to correctly, right?
mhm.
I mean, I
I
think
suppose yeah.
that's what the goal of this is anyway. But
It looks like I'm just looking at attendance. The Las Vegas Aces, Phoenix Mercury, Seattle Storm, they all averaged close to around 9,000 people per game, which is not bad. The lowest is the Atlanta Dream right now, 3,000 per game. But you could say, well, I don't know. It's like it would maybe I would say it's like the ESPN promoting MLS. above anything else, even though I would say it's not as popular as a lot of other sports that are currently going on right now. Maybe because because they do broadcast. Like one of the reasons why hockey was not promoted very much by ESPN for a while is because ESPN did not broadcast hockey for several years.
Yeah.
Baseball they don't broadcast that much either. So
Well, there were those
it's not
couple
like
years
they're object.
NHL was like broadcast on some like sport on some like outdoor channel or something, wasn't it? For
Outdoor Life Network, yeah, which became Versus or something. But now it's on like Fox Sports
yeah,
or became TNT, and now I think there's NBC coverage, NBC Sports. So like I think also that is like we think of ESPN somewhat as an objective news source, but really they are a broadcasting system that promotes its
yeah,
own thing. So I guess that's why. But I don't know how much people follow the WNBA regular season. Um, is my I don't know.
yeah.
Uh, I guess also people don't follow Major League Baseball that much, maybe other than their own teams.
Right.
So maybe I'm sure they have some
It
reason.
only televises a couple of games a week, right? Too for
Mhm.
maybe only one game a week for baseball.
ESPN Sunday
Yeah.
night, I guess they
Saturday
have.
night baseball, Sunday night baseball.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
I
they're
don't.
not broadcasting like three games every day. Even in the in the playoffs, I don't think they have any broadcast rights, right? So like they cover baseball as a major sport. I don't know. Even though they don't have like,
Mhm.
full rights to it, I think. But like, ESPN, like the shows weren't they can't even like show some of the soccer highlights from the Women's World Cup because I don't think they have
Yeah, it's Fox that
rights to the
I think owns
footage
the rights.
for the replays even, which is pretty surprising.
Yeah,
So
it's because FIFA controls it. Olympics were like that too because it's controlled by a corrupt international
yeah,
organization rather than like it would be like if the NFL wouldn't allow highlights to be disseminated from games. It's outdated and strange. Like or like
yeah,
old boxing matches were like that when they were aired like on HBO or Showtime. You could only show like still photos
no, yeah,
of you
right.
know Mike Tyson getting knocked out by Buster Douglas or something, and that
Yeah,
was
like
all that
the
anybody
standing
gets.
over the downed opponent, right?
Yeah,
Those
it's
kinds of shots, yeah.
yeah. I know. Yeah. I don't really care for that kind of coverage or the idea that oh we should these major news events shouldn't be shown because they're technically owned by one network
Right.
or one network only one network has basically usually it's only one network has permission from whatever authority supposedly runs the sport. Um, and usually an authority that is really only there because it got there first, and it's nobody would use it if there was a there what it just seems really strange that FIFA is still a thing, and these international organizations are still a thing when
Yeah.
other places do it a lot better.
Or they've already been identified as being extremely corrupt
Yeah,
and people have been fired and jailed in some cases, but they're still continue to be corrupt and still exist.
exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Completely incorrupt.
yeah, the incorruptible National Football League. I was thinking, uh, speaking of yes, I was thinking of speaking of Sunday. We only have you only have a few more Sundays to wait uh, until actual. I think on Thursday of this week, isn't there a preseason
Oh, is this the Hall of
game?
Fame game or
Hall of Fame game, I think.
man, that seems like it's too fast. Is it really? Is the first preseason game like next week then?
Yeah, it is August 3rd, so it is actually going to air before we air. It's tomorrow. No, wait, no, it's the day we air. It's Thursday. Yeah, because it's very very early on Wednesday morning for me.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, so yes, our episode will air a few hours before
the Hall of Fame
the Hall
game
of Fame game. Yes.
between the Jets and the Browns. Who do you think's going to win the Hall of Fame game? Preseason football, preseason football.
Well, I assume the Jets are gonna have play 4 quarters of Aaron Rodgers, and yeah, and they will still lose 10-9.
Is this the
That's
is
my
this the
prediction.
matchup? Is this the matchup of the two least likable starting quarterbacks
Probably
in the NFL?
John Watson, and yes, probably. Well, but speaking of Aaron Rodgers, though, did you see his contract news this week?
He's taking a large pay cut, or at least deferring a lot of his money until next year. I guess maybe to truly cripple the Jets in future seasons, if only maybe to make them slightly better this year to allow the signing perhaps of Dalvin Cook or somebody else. I don't know. It seems like adding another running back to a team that already has good running backs in Brees Hall and maybe other. I think they have some other
Yeah, they,
talented
yeah, they had
backfield
another
players
player that
too.
was pretty good too.
Um, maybe not so much. Let's see. They have Brees Hall. No, Michael Carter is okay. They don't really have.
Yeah,
Okay, maybe it's not. Maybe Brees Hall is been injured, so maybe you think Dalvin Cook. But you think if the Jets were really worried about their running back room, they would have signed somebody already to
yeah.
bring in. Like they could have signed Ezekiel Elliott. They could have had a number of decent options. They could have, just Jonathan Taylor is perhaps on the trading block because of things. So I don't know. I don't. It seems like we're having a running back is not really that important anymore in the NFL.
Yeah.
In terms of, especially at least paying for a running back is not very important. You can see what happened with, the Chiefs, who have basically had league minimum salary guys as their starting running backs and winning 2 Super Bowls.
Mhm.
I think you mentioned before we went on the air, the Denver Broncos kind of showed that you have a good line, offensive line, you can kind of put anybody back there, and Terrell Davis or any of his replacements, or um, to have the Chiefs kind of did that too when they had the good line. When if Priest Holmes went down, Larry Johnson could run for 1,800 yards, or
Yeah.
Mike Cloud could rush for 5 touchdowns in a game or something like that. Um, it didn't really matter. So and it's a plug. And unfortunately for running backs, like they get used up very very early, and they get paid very little compared to some of their peers in
Hmm.
terms of how much they're used. So um, it's a and it seems like there's a market weakness for we don't want we want very very cheap players or really big stars, and like if you're in the middle, a veteran that's pretty good but costs more than a rookie contract person, might be out of a job. So it's I don't. So what do you think? Do you think the Jets will sign Dalvin Cook? Do you think they will be a good team?
I mean, they're gonna sign somebody pretty big because yeah, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have deferred that much salary for nothing, right? And I think they're under the cap already, from what I remember. So it looks like
Some,
they're trying to do something quite large because that was
yeah.
like close to
I
50 million that's getting deferred, right?
I've heard that Devontae Adams might be the target as well,
Yeah,
reuniting basically every Green Bay Packers receiver from the last 2 or 3 years: Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, Devontae Adams, plus Nicole Hardman. Other
yeah.
than Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who is on the Chiefs, all of the um, I don't I, I don't know. I guess that will help, but you would also think, well, maybe why didn't Aaron Rodgers decide to take this pay cut when they could have signed DeAndre Hopkins or
Mhm.
Odell Beckham or somebody that was on the market
They hadn't
earlier?
he hadn't done that pay cut yet though. So
Yeah,
maybe
why? Yeah, but why didn't he do it earlier so they could get somebody into camp to like
yeah.
actually practice rather than like, oh, by the third preseason game we'll get somebody in. It just seems like it's Aaron Rodgers trying to make himself look good, but not really necessarily helping. Um,
But he's still
the
deferring
team.
it though, so that's already, signed, I guess, right? So
yeah. So I don't. Yeah, it's going to cripple the Jets at some point, I guess. They're
Yeah,
really going
well,
in
next
for.
season, right? Because he only has
Yeah,
a 2-year deal, so the only place he can defer it is to next year,
I don't
right?
even know he's going to play next year. He might just decide, well, I like 1 year. I'm done. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. I still this Hall of Fame game, yeah, between Deshaun Watson and
You didn't like my prediction though of Aaron Rodgers playing all 4 quarters and then the team still losing 10-9 as the final score.
I would actually love that. I would actually, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but like if I could see two players in the league get get injured, I don't want to see anybody get injured. It would be Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers probably. Um,
So
like
your disappointing scenario is that they can't be injured on the same at the same time. Is that really what it is?
it would be funny if they somehow
Collided on the
collided with each
sideline?
other on the sidelines, and because they would still make like zillions of dollars
Right.
and like harm their franchises irreparably, probably, at least for the next several years, because of their huge contracts and their just like general kind of awfulness. Um, so I don't really I don't root it's like I don't like Mac Jones, but I don't think he's as like I think he's not necessarily an awful human being in the ways that I think maybe Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson are, if that makes sense. Um, so I don't know. They're yeah. So that's like yeah. I guess they're. Do you know why the Jets and Browns were assigned the Hall of Fame game?
No idea.
It's because of I think Darrell Revis and Joe Thomas. Uh, it's a Brown and a it's a Brown and a Jet making it into uh, the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I think it's Joe Thomas.
Oh,
So that's why Joe Thomas is being inducted and Darrell Revis.
for the actual Hall of Fame induction that's happening
Yeah,
that same
yeah. So
weekend.
usually they have yeah. So I guess the players who are making it are Rondé Barber. So it could have been Tampa, I guess. Zach Thomas, because it could have been the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Um, or the Chiefs. Remember, he was a Chief during training camp before he retired. Darrell Revis also has ties to the Chiefs. He played his last season, I think, or one of his last seasons in Kansas City.
Yeah,
Demarcus Ware. This is I think a very lackluster Hall of Fame class in terms of the players. I don't I
oh yeah.
so it's Don Coryell who was I guess an innovator offensively, um, but Chuck Howley, Joe Klecko who was kind of adequate. He played for the Jets, but he was not a. I don't think of him as being a great player. Um, He was like around like Mark Gastineau. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler. He led the league in sacks 1 year, 2-time All Pro. But like it just seems like I don't know. Demarcus Ware was decent. Like none of these guys are like big stars, but I don't know. Baseball kind of limits their Hall of Famers to like, well, we're not going to elect anybody this year, or we're not going to. But like football, it seems like they're this is like a year that like there aren't that many good options, and then
Yeah.
maybe in coming years like there's going to be huge. Like they didn't like elect any of like the wide receiver backlog that they could have. Like I
Hmm.
think um uh is Reggie Wayne in the Hall of Fame or is um yeah, Dwight Freeney was not elected. I think of him as being probably better than DeMarcus Ware. I don't know. He won a championship probably. I don't know. Better than Joe Klecko, certainly, I think. Um it was just it's a weird year, I think. Joe Thomas was a good lineman, but he played for a lot of terrible teams, and it's hard to say how good they were. Um,
Yeah.
I think Torrey Holt also is kind of on the edge and hasn't made it as a wide receiver. I think of him as being a I don't know. I think of this Revis. I think is the probably the best of the class that at least of former players. But
Yeah.
I don't know. This was it seems like a lackluster
That's
class.
Rondé Barber, not Tiki Barber, though, right?
Rhonda, yeah. I guess Rondé was better, but like I don't know. He wasn't.
Is Tiki Barber in the Hall of Fame?
I don't think so. No, he is perhaps in the Hall of Fame for the brightest smile of any uh, NFL player. I don't know if Rondé's teeth were as unnaturally bright as Tiki's were, but um,
Are
but
they twins or just brothers?
I think they were twins.
Which means
Yeah.
still twins, then, right?
What'd you say?
So which means that they're still twins, then, right? I was just
Yeah,
laughing.
they're still twins. Oh, they are
Yes,
still
that they
twins. Yes,
were
I guess they
twins.
were twins, and they're still twins. Yeah, yeah. Rondé played
And they continue
cornerback.
to be twins. Yes.
Tiki was born 7 minutes after Rondé, so Rondé is the older brother. Um,
Presuming they were switched an even number of times, right?
yes, I haven't seen Rondé's got pretty. His teeth are pretty white, but they aren't as dazzlingly like
Hmm.
subway tile, bright chiclet kind of white
Hmm.
as Tiki Barber's teeth are.
You
So
automatically assume that was unnatural, though. That's
I do assume it's because people who age and eat things like my teeth are yellowish probably because I brush them, but like I don't scrub them with polish or have veneers or things put on them to make them unnaturally right. Like they aren't whiter. They aren't like 6 shades whiter than my eyes, for instance. Like it's I think that's what it is. Um, but Americans are very tooth. Uh, Teeth are very important for American appearances compared to the rest of the world. Um, I don't think I have bad teeth. I don't think you have bad teeth either. But like according to TV people, like it's not like
hmm.
the
Right. Electric.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, any other NFL news from this week?
Well, we have some injuries. Maybe the best cornerback in the league since Darrell Revis um, has been, he tore his meniscus for the Dolphins.
Out till
Yeah,
December.
yeah, Jalen Ramsey.
They just
Uh,
acquired Jalen Ramsey too, right?
yeah, they just got Jalen Ramsey to pair with Xavier Howard in maybe make the two best cornerbacks in the
Hmm.
league. I know it's one of those things where I think the Dolphins were probably a better team than the Jets were, even with Rodgers added. So that's one reason I was kind of bearish on the the Jets chances. So like yeah, the Jalen Ramsey's injury. He has maybe the same injury as Chiefs receiver Kadarius Toney, who also hurt his meniscus, and maybe is going to be out until several weeks for several weeks. It seems like Ramsey's not going to be back until like December or something like that. So
Yeah.
that's a big loss for them.
Just
Uh,
Tony having surgery then too, or is he
yeah, Tony had surgery. He
okay?
got conflicting reports. Sometimes some people said it was to clean up. Some people said it was to like repair something he hurt in practice. Tony is a very kind of at least he's seen as a brittle player and he's injury prone and maybe he's a
Hmm.
young Sammy Watkins or something in terms of his injury his status, but I think he's already paid dividends for winning, basically helping to win the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. So I think at this point, like Watkins, like he is, he is met all the Chiefs' expectations, and whatever we get from him now is kind of gravy. But yeah, there's been injuries. Joe Burrow perhaps also is maybe out for a little while with a calf strain. Um, it seems like maybe
Carted
not as
off
bad
in
as people.
practice, right?
Get carted off in practice. Josh Josh Allen had to miss a little bit of practice recently. The Broncos lost Tim Patrick for the second straight year. He had an ACL tear last year, Achilles tendon tear this year. So there's been a lot of injuries early on, but I think that seems like it's par for the course. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And
Somebody
uh,
fairly major goes down every year. And
yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm not a big. We can just talk about injuries, but like it's not. That's what there's been, I guess. And there's probably the most interesting thing though, has been Sean Payton mentioning how bad the Broncos were last year with
Mhm.
their former head coach, now Jets offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, leaving. What did you think of the Sean Payton comments about Nathaniel Hackett?
I found it amusing that a current coach would say something about, claiming something is the worst coaching job in the history of the league, from a guy that's like still in the league, which is it's a little surprising to hear somebody badmouth someone else that's still in the coaching ranks. Not a head coach, but you know,
Yeah,
it's demoted only one rung essentially, is what ended up happening with Hackett. So I know you were not a Hackett fan, and
no, I
did
think
you
I
find
thought
the comments amusing, or did you think
I do. I think
it's
they're accurate.
weird
I
that
don't.
a coach talks about another coach?
Well, I think they were accurate. I don't think actually they were.
Well, I don't
He
think they're
was right.
wrong. No.
I
Think
don't
it's
think
weird
Peyton
that
was
he
quite
said
right
it.
because Urban Meyer was also coach recently. So I think Urban Meyer's uh, time in Jacksonville, not necessarily from an X's and O's perspective, which maybe Hackett wasn't very good at, but like just from a general management issue was worse because he got fired like earlier. He kicked people. Apparently, he had other personal issues, and he was just generally awful.
Well, like
Uh,
the first couple things he did was like bring in a coach that had been um talked about very
Domestic
poorly by
abuse
his own players in
and
Iowa, right? And then brought in a guy that was supposed to be, well, they brought Tebow in, right? And
mhm.
but to play like a different position, and that, like, I know annoyed a lot of players and analysts, to bring in somebody, and I think he got paid a fair amount for like doing nothing then too. And it was just like it was a complete circus
Yeah,
from the moment he was signed.
yeah, yeah. I think Hackett was just out of his depth, and I think well, the only reason the Broncos brought in Hackett was because they thought they were going to get Aaron Rodgers,
Hmm.
and then Rodgers ended up re-signing with Green Bay, and they decided, well, we'll make a big splash and we'll pay a bunch for Russell Wilson, and Hackett was not cut out to be a head coach. He was just there as Rodgers bait. I don't think Hackett is even a very good offensive coordinator. I think that's one reason also that the Jets are not going to be very good is because Hackett has not shown anywhere that he's been a great offensive mind. His even his pedigree. Paul Hackett was a terrible offensive coordinator for many years for many teams. I remember him for the Chiefs. The Chiefs couldn't score any points with Marty Schottenheimer and Paul Hackett. It was a pedestrian kind of boring offense. That's what the Packers have had under Matt LaFleur um, and with Nathaniel Hackett, and even when he was the offensive coordinator, they, he was not like recommended highly by Aaron Rodgers for any reason other than the fact that he was a cool guy to hang out with. And it
Right.
seemed like maybe Rodgers was just trying to say something nice about Hackett, not necessarily saying like, oh, he sucks, but well, what can I say good about him? So maybe he's fun to hang out with. So then oh, we'll hire him for that. Like, so like, I don't, that's one reason. Another reason I think the Jets are not going to be very good. So I predict the Jets to disappoint maybe as much or more than the Mets. And I think Yeah, so so I kind of like Peyton what Peyton said, although Peyton would also kind of insulted the front office staff by implying that they brought in this horrible hack. But I think he did probably win fans on his own team because he kind of says, well, this wasn't your guys' fault this year. It wasn't Russell Wilson's fault. It wasn't the
Right.
players' fault. It was just incompetence that cost you this past season. And so I think that I can think it can help
Well,
win his own team. And like, who cares if like it fires the Jets up like for a week 5 matchup against the Broncos in Denver? Like,
yeah,
whatever,
who
it
cares?
doesn't matter. So I think the statement was funny. I don't think there really any real blowback to it. So I kind of actually enjoyed it because I do think that Nathaniel Hackett is a hack, and I don't think he should be a head coach or probably should be an offensive coordinator either.
No.
But I guess maybe it'll be proved wrong with when the Jets, score 40 points a game this year. But we'll see.
So what happens if the Broncos, only win like 4 or 5 games this season? Then where where does the blame end up falling if the Broncos disappoint?
I think it's Russell Wilson at this point because I think it'll be two. Like, he is the only common denominator now. He'd be 2 years in, and he maybe be seen as washed up. And I think the
Yeah.
way he left Seattle and Pete Carroll kicking him, and then winning with Geno Smith just as well as he won with Russell. Like, I think so. I think Seattle's sort of success without Wilson and also shows maybe that Wilson was not as key to their success as people thought he was. So like if Denver kind of stays like Peyton, like maybe you can say, well, Peyton, this is his first year. Maybe things aren't so good your first year. Or maybe you can also say, well, maybe Peyton he was good because he had Drew Brees or something. But I think you could question him, but still it's only 1 year for him.
Yeah.
And
But it's
it's
still be
two
the same
years.
front office. So the personnel choices would still been made by somebody that isn't Sean Payton and is still there too, right? So
Yeah, it's
he can still blame the front office if they don't succeed, right?
it's George Payton, right? Isn't he the general manager?
Oh, I don't know.
Paton. I think it's George Payton who is the general manager of the Denver Broncos right now. So like it's two Paytons, George Payton, Paton, and Sean Payton, Payton. And then they had Peyton Manning, Peyton. So they had three. Uh,
3 different
Paytons.
Paytons.
They did not have George Patton,
Mm.
Paton, or David Patton, the former New England Patriots wide receiver. I believe he was Patten. But um, they'd have Tim Patrick, I guess, who got hurt this past year. So I think it's
They're not going to read the novel "Cry the Beloved Country" by.
Alan Payton. Yeah, very good South African author. I think James Earl Jones was in the movie. Um, yeah,
You didn't know you were going to get a literary reference there, did
that's
you?
pretty good. That's pretty good. We had George. Yeah, we had George Payton, George Patton, Peyton Manning, Sean Payton, um, Peyton Place, the TV show.
All right. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's going to get a patent for their work in uh, the NFL. Your company has received 2 patents recently, or patents sometimes, as the
The Brits would.
British would say. Yeah,
Yes.
patents. They will be patently offensive, perhaps, or this. I don't know. We can make all these puns, but I still think that Russell Wilson will be playing because this is his second year, and it seems like maybe he will fall back. And like trading for him, cripple. I guess you could say it's George Payton as well because they gave away so much and paid so much for uh, Russell Wilson, and I would say he's on a short. The general manager and the quarterback are on a shorter leash than Sean Payton.
Yes. Oh, for sure. But the expectations are going to be high. So because they, brought in a premier coach to take over the team. So the expectation I think is going to be higher there than say like like with the Texans, I guess, right? So they have they had a lot of draft capital and also a new coach, but
Hmm.
not a premier, you know, the biggest coach's name out there was not the guy they signed, right? So
No, yeah, he was.
because
He's a different.
he went to Denver, right? So
Yeah,
like
and he.
if Houston does okay, that will still be fine, right? From like the outsiders' eyes, or even like the insiders' expectations, right? But
Yeah, they have a new quarterback. They have. They were not good at all last year, so like you can only go up, really. I think
yeah,
in
but Denver,
Houston.
had a terrible year last year. They have fired their coach. They got a new coach, and I still think that if their expectations are going to be very high, but they're unlikely to meet those expectations though because there are still really good teams in that division. So I
Yeah,
mean, even if you make up ground, if you pick up a game or two, like you're still not going to make the playoffs. But where Houston, they could move up. They could win 3 or 4 more games than they won last year. And that'll be, a huge improvement, right?
yeah. If Houston goes 5-12 or something like that, even it would still be an improvement. And CJ Stroud, if he looks decent, I think even if he's because especially because he was the second quarterback taken rather than it was Bryce Young taken first. It will if he does reasonably well because it seemed like it was a difficult choice who you're going to take as the quarterback
Mm-hmm.
uh, for the Texans because so many people thought Anthony Richardson was the um, one of the most upside. A lot of people thought that Will Levis might be the one that the Texans were going to pick. So like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess you could say, well, maybe if all three of those other quarterbacks do well and Stroud doesn't, that could be a problem. But I think the Texans are like there's no place to go but up,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's expecting that much right now.
I think that's where it's really important, though, is the expectation is also low. So any
Yeah,
kind of success is going to be viewed as very
yeah.
positive.
Denver is a little bit like the Cowboys. Like you expect, even though it might not be really rational, the ownership and the fans they expect them to be very good. They're seen as this kind of premier
Mm-hmm.
type of franchise that needs to be really good. And if they aren't, um, it's heads will roll. I think, and it's
But
so. Yeah,
in reality, they could still finish last in the division, but still improve though in some way, right? Because they don't have Black as the head coach anymore.
yeah. They
That's
have
true
somebody
too.
who doesn't need like an extra coach to call the timeouts for him, or
Right.
doesn't need the extra coach to like tell them what the score is. Like it was like he had the like sideline guys like help him like, oh, this is when we need to call a timeout, or this is when we need to do like it was he was just in over his depth. I think he had probably never been on the sidelines. He's probably only been like up in the booth calling plays, or maybe not even calling plays because Matt LaFleur was the offensive like, it's one of those things where why was this guy hired before Eric Bieniemy was hired as a head coach, and he still hasn't been hired as a head
Right.
coach. He had to go to like Washington to be another offensive coordinator, and Nathaniel Hackett only falls downward to be the offensive coordinator at the Jets because well he's going to lure an air like it's just one of those things where like nepotism and being not black has really helped Hackett continue his career even though he's had no success that I know of like on his own or like it just makes it just mind boggling. I think you had thought that the Josh McDaniels hire was worse than Nathaniel Hackett. I thought Nathaniel Hackett was worse. It
Yeah.
turns out both of them were pretty bad. They were the two worst hires probably of last year, but
Yeah.
there's nothing that has um, like yeah. So if you look at the fact Nathaniel Hackett's career history, he was the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills in 2013 and 2014. Um, And the Bills in 2013 finished 6-10. In 2014, I don't think they did much better. Um, and then he became they were 9-7. Oh, they had a winning record that year with Doug Marrone. But they didn't have a but Doug Marrone was also an offensive minded coach at that point. So he was an offensive coordinator for an offensive coach, and then he was Jacksonville Jaguars quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator. I think probably under Doug Marrone for some of that again.
Yeah.
Um, and Jacksonville, I don't know, had one maybe sort of decent year when they made the AFC Championship, but it wasn't because they had like a high-powered great offense. I didn't think, but that was with like Bortles, and then he became the offensive coordinator under the Packers, and so he's been offensive coordinator like for this is his fourth team that he's been the offensive coordinator for. And he's younger than we are,
Hmm.
and he's had basically no success as the offensive coordinator, at least not on his. I don't know. I just don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense to me, other than the fact that he's Paul Hackett's son,
Yeah.
and like like we said, he's not even like this. It's not like he's Babe Ruth's son as the manager or something.
Right.
He is the son of a not very good coach, and it's just I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. Like he hasn't. Yeah, I don't. He
Like, how does Lane Kiffin keep getting jobs?
I guess Monty Kiffin was seen as a good coach, the father, right?
Yeah.
Um, he was, but he was a defensive coordinator. Lane Kiffin was an offensive guy. So at least they did something a little bit different, maybe, than each other. Lane Kiffin, I think,
Is
was
that
seen as
how
kind of
it
innovative.
works?
Yeah, Monty Kiffin is considered to be one of the greatest defensive coordinators in NFL history. It says on this Wikipedia article, the father of the Tampa 2 uh, defense. Paul Hackett just kind of ran the West Coast offense into the ground, like so.
Yes.
Like he devolved the West Coast offense from like the height of Bill Walsh and people like Mike Holmgren and guy and Andy Reid who really developed it and did a lot of stuff with it. And Paul Hackett kind of turned it into crap. And then then Nathaniel Hackett does the same thing, and he's going to get. I just I just really I don't know. He's so I maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe he'll be a great coordinator with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets will score 40 points a game. But that's my soapbox that I'm going to stay on. Um, do we have any other comments, or I feel like this has just been a rant against Nathaniel Hackett and the Jets today, but
And
uh,
Royals management and
Royals management. Yeah. I guess. Oh, maybe one thing before we go, we should be talking about Travis Kelsey and his
no.
fisticuffs with not one but two defensive fringe players on the Chiefs who are trying to make the roster, Jack Cochran and DiCaprio Boodle. Do you think there's anything to be said about those fights that Kelsey has been involved with, or is this just kind of much ado about nothing?
I mean, I don't know. I just assume it's nothing, but it's kind of funny that he's involved in, yeah, a second fight after, one happens. It's a little surprising that he would get involved with something else, right? Seems
Yeah,
complicated, but who
Jack
knows?
Cochran seems to be to me to be either the next Ben Neiman or the next Daniel Sorensen of the Chiefs. So I would say the less he plays, the better the Chiefs will be. We
Hmm.
brought in Drew Tranquil as the kind of fourth linebacker,
Right.
or so like it seems like he shouldn't see the field other than special teams. Cochran, and he tried to punch the ball out of Kelsey's hands after Kelsey made a catch in the end zone in practice. Like it seemed like kind of a douchey move that he made, and then Kelsey kind of maybe went over the top, but
Yeah,
But we didn't see what happened like earlier. Maybe he had been doing it all practice or something, and there's a
yeah.
reason. And Boodle may have done. I don't know what Boodle did, but I didn't see that one. I just kind of heard about that one. So I don't know, but
I
I
saw
don't think it
something that
really
said like it
matters.
was like carrying on after the play was stopped or something, and
Yeah, I think it's good maybe to see that Kelsey is fired up in the preseason, and this
yeah,
maybe shows that he's not necessarily going to just kind of rest on his laurels and be happy. So maybe that's a good thing.
we
Um,
just don't want to see him mixing it up with his own teammates though.
no, at least, well, he's not. Yeah, you don't want to see him mixing up with the other defense in the actual game if they do that to him. So you might want to make control the temper. But Kelsey has had a few kind of hot-headed incidents. Didn't he throw
Yes,
a penalty flag into the stands one time early in his career? I think that it was a
yeah,
bad call, but
I
he got
forgot
mad
about
and
that.
he yeah. But I don't. It's fun. I think it's you know the defense and the offense they don't have to really get along. I think, and
Yeah,
they don't have to really. They don't. Like, they're not the cohesive unit. So maybe it builds unity between the offense and the defense. If they don't necessarily like each other all the time, it's okay.
yeah, that's fine. And
And we don't even know if
as long as nobody gets punched and nobody breaks a hand or a nose or something, right?
yeah,
That's the main thing, right? So
yeah,
scuffles in
and
practice, I think they happen. It's just yeah, as long as they don't end in an injury, especially if Kelsey.
also yeah, we don't know if Boodle or I guess Nazi Johnson towards ACL, so maybe Boodle is more likely to make the team now that
Yeah.
Johnson is going to be out. But Cochran is a fringe kind of special teams player, like I said earlier. But so like it's possible maybe that those incidents though maybe are the deciding factor that would keep them off the roster. If you say, well, you don't want just some jerk who makes Kelsey mad on the team, you want guys that are
Yes.
more with the program or something like that. But yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know if Kelsey's really a big jerk or not, but I'm sure he's in some ways he's earned the right to be kind of like that since he's probably the you know one of, if not the best tight end in history. I think even
Mm,
though we'll say Tony Gonzalez, but Kelsey is miles better than Gonzalez ever was. I think Gonzalez had longevity and stuff like that.
yeah.
But I don't think he wasn't as good a route runner. He wasn't as good after the catch. I don't think he was sometimes good at going up and getting the ball in contested
Mm,
traffic, but I think Kelsey's just as good. I think of Kelsey as being miles ahead of whatever. I never thought Gonzalez was as good as like people gave him credit for. I don't think he was as good as like Shannon Sharp or as good as um, Antonio Gates, the people kind of with his era. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bitter because he left and wanted to be a Falcon rather than a Chief.
right.
And because he always seems very fake and phony when he's on the sidelines. Tony Gonzalez, a little bit like Tiki Barber. Um, he's got that kind of smug, kind of smarmy. I don't know. Rick Fox, Tony Gonzalez, like he should be in a Radio Shack commercial,
Yeah.
uh, shilling for something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I believe he was on the Cal basketball team that ousted Iowa State from a NCAA tournament, actually.
Yeah, mm, even worse. And they always talk about he was a great like he didn't play. He wasn't that good at that. He was like on the team, but he played like 6 minutes a game. I think he wasn't great,
Yeah.
but he was. Again, it's hard to be an athlete in varsity sport and two things. But I don't know. I just never quite. I don't know. I always thought of him as being kind of phony. It's like he was preparing for like a career in broadcasting after, but he wasn't like genuinely likable like Michael Strahan or something. Like he seemed like phony to me, and I don't know why. It's
Mm,
just Donnie Edwards kind of had that quality to me too.
mm.
Uh, I don't know, just certain of the guys that seemed a little like I don't know. I like it was just a
Just didn't
anyway.
see him
We're
as a genuine guy.
yeah. He struck me as like a pretty boy kind of like
Mm,
or like the like a kind of like Dwayne Johnson, but without quite all the charisma of The Rock. Um, like a the sort of cut rate Dwayne Johnson. Yes,
Walmart.
great value, Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, that's how we're going to refer to him on this show from here out.
Yeah, he was a better football player than Dwayne Johnson was, but um, because Dwayne Johnson, I think he played for my University of Miami, but I don't think he wasn't a star for them. But,
Right. Well, he was like was it Warren Sapp in front of him,
Mhm.
I think, on that same team.
Yeah,
So
he
they,
had Warren Sapp, Cortez Kennedy, I think.
yeah.
That Miami Dolphins, that Miami Hurricanes defense of the '90s. That was the team that uh, 94 Miami Hurricanes. They lost to Nebraska in
Hmm.
the first year in the first of the repeat Nebraska national championships for 94, 95. The 95 team was even better than 94. But yeah, they had some really good. I'm looking at the roster. Yeah, that was Ray Lewis was on that team. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson was on that team. Warren Sapp, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I think he played the same position as Warren Sapp, and then he was actually Sapp was in
I think
front.
I think he got replaced
Yeah.
by Warren Sapp. Yeah, I think Warren Sapp was a year younger.
Uh,
Um, and make
hmm,
make Cortez.
hmm,
Well, Cortez Kennedy died. I didn't remember that.
hmm,
Um, oh yeah, Cortez Kennedy was a couple years earlier.
hmm,
He was another defensive line a few years earlier.
hmm,
Did you know Cortez Kennedy died
hmm.
in 2017?
Nah, I don't know.
Um, heart failure.
Hmm.
And his brother Lincoln Kennedy. Is that his brother?
No idea.
Were they related? Lincoln Kennedy versus. I don't. I don't. Anyway, we can move. I don't see that they're related.
Okay. They're probably not then.
But they played. Didn't they both play for the Seahawks? Kind of at the same. No. Lincoln Kennedy. Oh, it was the Raiders. Lincoln Kennedy played for the Raiders.
Hmm.
Anyway, we should probably wrap things up
I think so.
on that downer note. Oh, I hate Tony Gonzalez. Let's talk about the death of Cortez Kennedy.
I have
You know, was
one last topic, just real
okay.
fast though. Quick response. What do you think? Colorado University returning to the Big 12 for next.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Now there are going to be 13 teams after Oklahoma and Texas go to the SEC. I think
Yeah.
maybe it's going to lead to Arizona probably going, and perhaps maybe Arizona State and Utah. That would probably be a decent geographical. And it's just basically it seems like it's the beginning of the end of the Pac-10, Pac-12, Pac whatever number they're going to be. Um, I think it was dumb that UCLA and USC. Well, I guess it wasn't dumb, but like it just seems like they aren't going to fit very well in the
Yeah.
Big Ten. So, but that seems like it was the beginning of the end of that conference. They haven't been able
Yeah.
to do much. What do you think of Colorado
The
re-entering?
further pilfering of the Pac-12. Yes.
I think it's interesting that the Big 12 was seen as like the weakest of those Power Five conferences, but now it's seems like it's maybe becoming one of the top three because the ACC might be losing some more teams to the Big Ten, and maybe the
Mhm.
Big 12 will take more from the Pac-12. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, that's what I always thought. It was weird that the Big 12 was seen as the one of the smaller versions or the weaker versions, but the Pac-12 has been not very good in any of the major sports most of the time.
Yeah,
So it seemed like that should be the one that gets cannibalized if one of them is going to be cannibalized. So Yeah, but of the former Big 12 schools that had left the conference, I think Colorado is the one that I was most okay with returning, because I really would not want to see Nebraska or Missouri come back. Uh,
Yeah, I'm.
Oklahoma and Texas, I don't ever want to hear from again. Basically, they
eh,
cause so many problems in the conference, Texas especially.
What about A&M returning? Would that be a?
No, I don't want to see them anymore either. No, no. I think so. Yeah, of the schools, yeah, Colorado was the one that was probably most okay to have come back to the Big 12. I know. I guess the Big 12 isn't actually like your like. Do you feel like that is like is that your conference? You feel like that because I guess you grew up as a Missouri fan,
I
right?
grew up. Yeah, my parents are K-State people.
Oh, that's right. So,
Being from Kansas City, it seems like the Big 12 is the conference,
yeah.
even with Missouri leaving and the fact that I went to Arkansas.
Mhm.
I like Arkansas, but I don't think of myself as an SEC person because
Right.
culturally, I don't think of myself as a Southerner. I'm more of a good Westerner. So, um, I would say I identify with the Big 12 more than the SEC as a whole. Maybe like I went to Penn State for law school, so maybe Big Ten ish a little bit, but in Nebraska, my mom's from Nebraska, so maybe sort of. But I still, but of the teams that I followed, I followed the old Big Eight, and still the old
Yes.
most of the old Big Eight is still in the Big 12, other than
Or
Missouri and
soon to be back
Nebraska.
in the Big 12.
Six out of the 8 teams are going to be back in the Big 12. So,
Yeah.
or five, I guess. Oklahoma's gone now, so it's going to be five. It's
Yeah. Oklahoma,
five,
Nebraska, Missouri are out.
five out of the eight.
Right now it's only four, but it will soon be back to more than half. Right. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. All
Okay.
right.
So speaking of back, we have been back after my short hiatus for taking the bar exam, but we will also be back again next week with another exciting episode of the One Trick Power Hour. Hopefully, I think this one ran longer than maybe we had expected because we had thought, oh, this is going to be a quick one. We'll get the Major League Baseball and the Women's World Cup and the NFL out of the way quickly, but it devolved into rants from both of our sides, discussing our disgust with certain players, certain teams, even people who have been long retired and shouldn't have earned any of our ire, but still did somehow because it's late and we're tired and we're cranky. But we hope that you will not be cranky when you hear uh, this broadcast today or when you listen in next week to another exciting, fun filled, and action packed edition of WT. And as always, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the One Trick Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our podcast/YouTube channel. And we will see you again next time. We have anything else to add before we officially sign off?
I don't think so. Yeah.
So until we meet again, we will wish you a good day.